All right, let's go into some of the more fun stuff and more technical stuff that Firenock was. Aero Concept. What does Aero Concept really mean? It's a new approach, a new concept approach to aero building. Let me give you a little bit of background of what Aero Concept is about. Aero Concept was made because in 2008, when I met Scorpet, Jim, Scorpet, there's no aero on this planet that will work with what he needed. Scorpet 165, or called LDT 165, is shooting 425 feet per second. And the only aero he can possibly find is a gold tip laser 2, which is a 3-inch spine cut down with a gold tip 22 series arrow. That's what it is. In my mind, and everybody saying that, okay, we need to align the spine, all this stuff like that. I said, no, no need to. Let's physically change the property of the arrow. So what I did is that at that moment, I bought some gold tip aluminum insert, and I got some gold, I call gold tip and mix me some arrow that will fit inside a gold tip 22, and cut it down to 10.5 inch and glue the whole thing. Guess what? It worked. Because it changed the spine of the arrow significantly. It made the arrow stronger, but after a while, just behind the insert, where the tube goes, it cracked. Because the insert and the insert and the shaft eventually do this and crack the shaft like this. Okay? Which lead to, remember we talked about arrow insert H with double shoulder? Another first shoulder, a second shoulder. The second shoulder is where the tube goes on. So now, the entire system actually look more like this. I'll give you one piece so you can see it. In other words, this is going to be it. See that? The insert, the secondary tubing, and of course you can push the insert down. That becomes the insert. You're holding an insert in your hand. That whole piece is the insert. Of course, at the end of that insert is the arrow insert A.
So your other arrow will go over this.
Correct. Now people say, well, you know, what's wrong with a long insert, like a long aluminum piece tubing? We do the job. Well, if you do that, it's nothing different than an ACC, isn't it? ACC is aluminum with a carbon on the outside. But the downside is that the aluminum, the ACC Eastern use is super thin. You'll flex with it. Anytime you use insert material, it don't flex. The only thing you do for that cut situation, like some company out south, they make a long insert, like a 4-inch long insert. Think they would do the same thing. As I said, it won't. Unless you thin the insert down to the same thickness as an ACC inner. But if you do that, you have the same problem with ACC. You got metal fatigue issue. Just like all the good aluminum arrow, when you shoot about 70 to 100 times, the aluminum is junk. Because they might be 70, 75, you shoot the spine out of the shaft. Same deal. Now you know why in like Pro 2 or X10s, they're only good for 75 to 100 shots, then the arrow is gone. Because you shoot the spine out of the arrow. Now you know why most people, like in competition, about 70 to 100 shots, they actually get a new arrow. Because you shoot the spine out. That's the bad thing about aluminum arrows. Now, with the Aero Concept, it's changed totally. The original version Aero Concept 1.0, we have a second with a shaft in the front. With Aero Concept 2.0, it's front and back. Now, what's the big deal? The big deal is that on a normal shaft, in a normal shaft with just an insert and a knot and a vein, this is what it will do. In the front, the arrow will finally go into very tight elliptical gyro. Yes, it's a tight, it's not a tight spin. It's the tight, actually, it spins more like this. Not this, but this. It's an elliptical format. I will go into that when you go to the shaft, what this is about. Did you get it? The front and the back is now Aero Concept 1.2. The 1.0 now, the number you get is that a normal arrow will take 15 to 18 yards to go into a tight elliptical gyro. With the Aero Concept 1.0, you'll be stop flexing in 9 feet. The 2.0, you're talking 5. If the arrow is not flexing, what does that mean? The arrow is storing the energy on the shaft. Now let's look at it from another point of view. If you do most of the hunting, whatever, what's the part that's most probably damaged? Right here. Especially you do ASA, IBO, when you shoot for 11 ring. When your arrow is 11 ring, the next guy 11 ring, what part are they hitting? Right here, when they're inside the target. That's the reason even on the PS23 or the Challenger, the Black Challenger, most arrow would have died the moment you touch it. With an Aero Concept in the PS23 or the Challenger, especially Challenger, it will survive. Now the second portion, why is this small piece have such a big deal? Now those are see that piece actually go on the end of it. You got a reverse taper. See that this is that's old technology. You not have the reverse taper here. All the new one have that. See the reverse taper right here, and the double shoulder with the tube. Okay. Now this year, I got something even more fun. But let me step back and talk about that two pieces, because I don't think I give you guys enough info on this. What is the big deal about this? And I will, hopefully the pen is better. I will draw it out. This is how an arrow flex when you launch it. Most people never understand this. When you shoot an arrow, this is how an arrow flex on your arrow rest. This is your null point. Now, where do you put your arrow rest? Can you imagine you put your arrow rest right here or here? But how many people look for that? Or how many people even know it? So imagine if you're somebody who shoot a really short arrow and they put the arrow rest right here. The arrow actually literally jump off your rest the moment you shoot it. Now you understand why prong rest with the people would do that. The prong rest actually got pushed down and come off. Because the prong rest are soft this distance right here when you shoot it. Now you understand why a lot of problems you're seeing. But nobody ever did anybody talk about this? But that's how an arrow launches. Now you see all your problems is because of you're not on the null. Now when you're on the null point, when the arrow flexes, what does it do to the arrow rest? You are supporting it, and when it have no flex in it. Now, the moment you do Aero Concept system, this arrow will come out like this, and all of a sudden this part just shallow out. This part will shallow out significantly, which means that you now got a wider space that you can accept a null point. Because this part don't flex evenly, because we got an Aero Concept in the front. So in other words, the Crossbow will see significant improvement with Aero Concept because this part of it had minimum flex. So you're not critical on the null. The null actually behaved like it was wider because the flex is shallower.
Is the shorter the arrow, the shorter the pieces? So do you send longer insert pieces for
No, you should never compound. The long and short really don't make a difference.
Okay.
I mean, Rodway did the test for me. The moment you pass 51% of the 45% of the entire arrow length, Aero Concept is useless. So the best part is around 10 to 40%. Depends on the arrow configuration. We find out for normal, but remember, the moment you pass 6 inch in gluing, there's not enough glue in it. Because you now have to use vacuum system with a plunger to plug the hole and suck the arrow with the glue in it together. Because if you just put glue and put the shaft down, the glue is never enough to go all the way up the shaft. The maximum you can use normal flow is about 6 inches. That's the reason I shot the tube at 6 inches. Because now you don't need a vacuum. Is there other better way to do it? Yes, that is better way. On the Aero Concept 2.0, this is what I teach people. what you do is that you actually chamfer the shaft here first. You put glue in it, and then you push it up, so that the glue will be forced to go into it. That's what AeroConcept tube, you must do this. Otherwise, the tubing will go forward. Traditionally, you see when you glue the Aero insert version 1.0, when the first shaft comes to the second shaft, the glue flow will be like this. So as you push the shaft down, the glue will form a donut, and more the glue will flow into here. But this flow will only not exceeding 6 inch. Anything more than that, at this point, there's no glue left here. But with this approach, that means you pre-chamfer this, and you put glue in the tube to start with. Now, you can't do this to the front because you have no way to clean whatever left here in the front because your insert is here. But with the Concept 2.0, as you push this tube in all the way, you can now use a 9-inch Q-tip and clean off the excessive glue when you finish. Now you know why I got a 10-inch Q-tip right there. Because after I finish this, there's going to be some glue left over right here. So I can actually put a Q-tip in it, clean this part out, remove it. To do the Aero Concept 2.0. Because what's stopping this tube from moving forward? The only thing that's glue. If you just glue on using this method, which is the vertical drop donut method, that is not enough glue that can do the job. But you have no way to clean the excessive glue here. So no glue can go in here. The glue can only go on the inner shaft when you push it down. Just like this. I put glue right here. Okay? When I push this shaft down, a donut will form. And slowly, when you push it down, the glue will simply push it down, right? When you pass the 6-inch mark, how much glue is on top? All the glue got pushed down. There's no glue left in here. But if I chamfer this 45 degree on the back side, assuming this is the back, I chamfer this 45 degree, I put glue in here, and then I also put glue on the outside. So when I push it, this wedge is going to force more glue between it from the front, and this glue is going from the back. So now with two parts together, I now have glue on front and back. Then I use my extreme short end cap tool to push the piece all the way in to behave like that. Now the glue is front and back filled, but there is going to be excessive glue here. Am I right? Because I put glue in it to start with. So I have to clean that out. If I don't, the arrow is not going to be balanced. So I put a Q-tip in it to clean up all this. So this is an expensive build. But this is where the magic is. We proved that Aero Concept 2.0 compared to a normal arrow is about 30% difference in energy at 60 yards.
That little piece
gain of kinetic.
These two combined. So instead of losing 30 to 35, you may lose as little as 9. And in the case of the crossbow, 1.
Lose 9 or 1.
Kinetic energy. So for example, you got 100 pounds of kinetic energy. At 100 yards. With this thing, with a heavy LLC, with my gyro system, you have 99% left.
So you lose 1 pound of foot-pound of kinetic energy.
Oh, at 100 pounds, you launch it. But in the case of a 60-pound bow, because of flex, the weaker arrow, itself, say, I'm assuming you got 60 pounds of kinetic energy, okay? And just for the heck of an easy measurement, because say you lose 40. You have 36 pounds of kinetic energy with a 60-pound bow. Now instead of losing 10%, now you have 54 pounds. See the difference? 40 pounds is your kill. Anything less than that, you better be really honing your broadhead. You have to be super sharp, or else you ain't gonna cut it.
So this concept, the ACS version 2.0, is something that we build at our shop.
Correct. You actually build it for customer, they will pay dearly for it. And that's
but you provide the stems.
I provide the stems, the tube, and the inserts. Now you put it together.
We have to have the shaping or the
chamfering tool.
Chamfering tool and okay.
Because without a chamfering tool, you really cannot do it right.
Because it doesn't disperse the glue properly.
Correct. So you need this.
How about the bolts?
Same thing.
We build those too.
You can if you want the longer one, like my arrow bolts, there was a 7.5 and 11.5. You buy the front from me. You can add the tail to it. for your customers.
So it doesn't matter whether we're doing a 20-inch or a 24-inch. You use
can live
the
with
same,
you
the
can
11
use a
and
6.
7.
You can use a 6, and then you can also put a 5 or 6 on the back.
20 and 22 is going to be our main.
Right, but you know, it's this guy, the Challengers, the PS26, your Magnums. Those are the guys who will pay mucho dollars because they want to win, and they do year round.
Yeah, I would have done a lot better.
Now, to just give you an idea, why do I come up with this? Because let's put it this way, as an archery shop, after January, what do you really do?
3D.
Yes.
Spots.
And those are the guys that you need to educate and learn because those are your customers' teachers.
How do we sell this 2.0 to hunters? And kinetic energy, right?
No, see, first of all, it's an excessive amount of kinetic energy. Just put it this way, my scorpion death stalker, 115 pounds, all right? At 70 yard pin equal to 106 yard. Just put it this way. I put my death stalker only got 335 feet per second out of it. Because I've only got a 115 pound pool.
Yes.
But my 70 yard pin at 350 dial is 107 yard.
What?
Yes. It saved that much energy. With
So you just totaled the, you just completely wasted the HHA sight tape.
you can use it. The moment you use AeroConcept, the sight tape is absolutely useless.
So what do you?
You have to physically mark every single yard.
You're going to send us those tapes, right?
No, those tapes you cannot exist.
No, I mean the right ones.
No, it doesn't exist.
There isn't one that'll...
Because the broadhead, the vein, the shaft, the insert, they all have to come together. Not even with mine, they're different. If I put a
Different broadhead.
different broadhead, you'll behave differently. Because we were talking pure aerodynamic effect. Unless it's built 100% identical, the drop is not the same.
So how practical is that for us?
It is very practical because first of all, you are promoting a customer actually knowing his equipment. So you shoot your 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. The moment you finish shooting them, he got his mark. That is his tape. That is his arrow. That was his bolts. As long as the field point and the broadhead is the same way with mine, they will behave the same.
Well, the bad thing is a guy buys an HHA most of the time to have the 1 yard accuracy, like range it 67, put it on 67, instead of, you know, you might as well not have an HHA, you might as well go to like an XP30 Pro where you've got 10-yard increments.
Yeah.
No, those are useless. I just might use XP30 Pro. My 70 yard is equal to 107.
Jeez.
And I would even remember, I'm shooting 335. I put my dial at 350 because my arrow is that efficient.
So you'll gain speed and kinetic energy.
And drop all at the same time.
So I mean, like if how we could do it is if we had a Death Stalker and we've got a regular Death Stalker bolt, we shoot it through the chronograph, it's 379 feet per second. We could have one of those made up.
And you will see 379 feet per second because launch speed is the same. The
So
moment
we're not gaining any feet.
It's not speed.
it's not speed. It's
no,
zero
It's
speed.
behavior of the arrow.
So how do we capture that?
The only
on
thing
the
is
sight
very
tape?
simple.
No.
The moment you go out there,
on the video, on a,
very simple. This is the easiest to do. Shoot that Death Stalker, say at 50 yards with a normal arrow. Now shoot the same way arrow with AeroConcept 2.0 in it. You hit about, normally about 6-inch higher. Same depth, 6-inch higher. Now, let me give you an idea. When I sell AeroVing 2, this is what a normal guy did. From a Blazer to an AeroVing 2 at 315 feet per second, is 6-inch difference at 60-yard mark. From AeroVing 2 to AeroVing 3 is 6 more inches. So AeroVing 3
12
is not,
inches difference?
yes.
From a Blazer to an AeroVing 3?
so I'm shooting a Blazer on my gold tip here. So if I put an AeroVane 3 on there,
It depends on, remember, back then the bows are not well tuned, okay? Now well tuned bow, if you have less than 4 inches, you should talk to me. The higher the poundage, the more dramatic the difference. Now, of course, right now with high let-off bow, initially, it's even more dramatic. I mean, give you a same idea. The gentleman who used to approach that for Strahler was shooting SR70, no, shooting not SR71, the one before it with 4 screw on top, the V.
Rush?
No, not the Rush, the Veach one, something like that. the one just before they sold the company, the target bow. On the 70-pound bow with the titanium bow kit, it go in, the speed of the arrow is 100% identical, but 30 yards is 2 in China. With his 50-pound target bow, the moment you put a titanium kit in it, it jumps 17 feet per second.
What can we do with crossbows?
Same thing. I got the Raven crossbow titanium kit. I got the SB1 titanium kit. I got all those too.
How much of a difference will it make with a Raven?
Raven right now, I can't say have not done enough testing. I know with the SB1, they both feel really different. You should talk to the guy from. You should talk to all the top 3 guys in IBU and ASA and Crossbow. They're all shooting the SB1 right now, and they all just bought titanium kit from me. On the next round, you're going to see the results, and that should tell you all the difference you need to know. Because see what happened, he said the titanium kit changed the resonance cycle, which all this build up. Remember, you gain 3% here, 3% here, do not equal to 9%. They overlaps. But when you start doing those minute increments, you're getting closer and closer to perfection. Just like when you buy stereo. Just because you pay $30,000 for a stereo compared to $180,000 pair of speakers, the difference is not 8 times, it's that tiny bit more. Because you're looking for that increment perfection. Just like your 1,000 meter rifle and a 1,500 meter rifle do not just cost 50% more. It may be 5 times more. Because you're pushing that ultra high end. Just like you want to drive that 220 miles per hour car to 200 miles per hour car, you don't just simply pay 10% more, you double it. Because when you start pushing for that ultra high end, every single thing is difficult. I mean, into drag racing, say, oh, I do 320 miles per hour. Try to do 321 miles. You had to double your money, you may not get it. But do you want to win? That's the winning and losing. I mean, it's like every single sport. The moment you go up to that last part, just like when I talk with Professor Salek on airplane racing, just when you're number 1 to number 2, the difference is less than 0.1%. But from number 2 to number 3, maybe 1%. The moment you go to number 10, the margin is big. But when you start pushing for that very, very tip, this is where it kicks in. Am I making sense? So if you want the absolute, time will eventually trickle down. I mean, it's just like me and you are old enough. 20 years ago, you shoot a 300 feet per second bow, oh my God, you are somebody. Now, go to Walmart, got a bare bow with slap an air rest on it, it's 300. What's the difference? Technology. But back in 2000, in 1990s, to get to 300 feet per second, how much you need to spend? You get the best bow, cut the arrow to the bejesus, extra long arrow rest, overdraw to the wazoo, and then thin your cable lines from 22 strand all the way to 18 and pray it didn't break. Now you got your 300 feet per second. I mean, I went through that. You remember those days? If you are old enough to remember.
I remember overdraws.
See, this is what AeroConcept do. Now, this system, the good thing about it, what you will do is that the crossbow guy gonna love it, especially if you put a brass insert with my inner tube. We are talking less than 35 bucks you're able to do AeroConcept. That means you are talking my arrow bow at $75 for 3. You're able to match my capability for $35 for insert and tube.
A piece.
No, for a dozen.
That's not bad.
Of course not. Except shaft. That means if you want to build somebody a cheap stuff with arrow, say you buy my arrow, my spot weave, which is my arrow weave, my spot weave for the crossbow. Those are retail for $89.95 a dozen. As a dealer, you got your percentage rate out of it. And then now you throw $35 of insert. Theoretically, you match my arrow boat, which is sell for 25 bucks each.
I don't have my calculator with me, but what does that come out to for the...
You're looking at about $120. You got a full dozens of arrow boat capable arrows.
Yeah.
It's just not in that level of material. On concept-wise, it's 100% identical. So I'm pretty much opening the floodgate right now. It's why you are here.
That's right.
Because think about it. If you buy a dozen arrow bolt, the cheapest you can buy is $300. That's a dozen shaft. If you throw Firenock in it, it's $600 a dozen.
Is there a program out there that we could build our own sight tapes?
No.
For the HHA dials and that?
No, that's nothing. I would say this is what you can do. As you build your bow, you come up with material, you build a bow, that is your tape, then you can replicate that tape. Because the arrow have not changed. The bow shoot should not change much.
Unless it's a little faster or a little slower.
Yeah, but the tape should not change much, then you know your margin difference. Because so is every single bow. Because if it goes a little bit faster, a bit slower, the tape don't work anyway. Yes, and if the customer wants traditional, just normal one, go give them the normal arrow. This is the arrow for guy who want that.
Yeah.
If you want that 100, there's another thing major about arrow bolts, arrow vanes. You guys have not seen this, but you should check it out. In 2011, the customer challenged me. He said, Dodge, you're going to charge me $600 for a dozen arrow. I said, that good. I said, go ahead on the windiest day, shooting no less than 100 yards. He shoot 106 yards at 35 miles per hour, shoot 3 arrow block 2. Should I say more? 35 miles per hour at 106 yards with ramcats.
You had a broadhead on?
Of course. With ramcats. On a scorpion, on a 24-inch arrow bolt, because he want the most accurate. I tune the broadhead for him, I shoot it, he shoot 3 arrows. The first arrow, a little bit to the left in the center. The second one hit the first one and glance out and hit about 1.5 inches to the left. And third one hit about this side. They all touched the first arrow. That's 106 yards with 35 miles per hour. How do I know it? Because he put a 36-inch ribbon above the target. The ribbon is flat straight out. That's how you tell how fast. In the old days, you can't tell the wind, right? You tie a 30-inch ribbon, depends on how far the ribbon drops. You know the wind speed. The ribbon is flat, so I can't lie. The guy actually run to his target after 106 yards. The whole thing is a one-shot video. Now, tell me how many arrows you got can shoot 100 yards in 35 miles per hour when you aim.
That's the and this concept 2.0 with
will
that,
even exceed that. Those are based on concept 1.0.
with the $89 a dozen arrow.
That's with the, then you add $35 on insert to it.
Yeah, yeah.
$189
It was
No. It's $89.95 for the shaft, $30 or $20 for the tube, and $15 for the insert.
Oh, you're right.
So it's very reasonable. And then you add your labor on top of it, and you add your vane, whatever vane they want. Of course, if you want blazers, then you lose the wing capability.
What difference does that make at 100 yards from a blazer to the Aerovane 3?
About 8 to 10 inches.
8 to 10 inches.
So the whole idea is that you can misjudge
Right.
and still be good. Now just think about it. If you shoot ASA, now your 30-yard pins, you can be off by about 6 yards. You're still in the 11 ring. Most people are in the 8 already.
So they're shooting high?
Shooting low. Because most people are shooting high, yes. Or low, doesn't matter. Unless you call the lower 11, upper 11. You upper 11, you're in 8. But lower 11, you're in 8 already. See the flash shooting, of course, with this system, that's always work. As what they said, if you're not going to put in the time and effort, it's not going to work for you. Same truth. You don't want to put in effort, you're not going to know what your equipment does, it's never going to work for you perfectly. Just like you do a fresh reload, you expect the bullet to shoot the same? No, you're going to shot it a few times just to be sure. The moisture is different, the temperature is different, I mean, you say everything. I mean, that's the reason most of the customers who use my stuff are usually the bow guy move to gun, and they learn about long range shooting, they learn about reloading, then they saw my arrow, I don't even need to say, perfect reloading for bows. I don't have to tell them, they know the results. Of course the bullet is going to shoot differently, the profile of the bullet is different, the load is different, the powder is different, moisture, of course it's different. But for a normal bow guy, they expect to buy a bow and shoot just like a rifle. No! It is exactly the rifle, but you don't understand a rifle is the problem. Isn't it? Because people have different misconception what is capable and what is right. Because I can shoot a rifle at 100 yards and should be good. I say, do you know that about just 120 years ago, or even better, 210 years ago, if a guy wearing red coat shoot 3 bullets, he's home free because he has paid his dues. Because he is lucky to hit something. If he can make a 3rd shot out, he is lucky. And none of them will shoot over 30 yards with accuracy. That's a rifle. But technology changed. It's like this is a different level of technology. Eventually, I think somewhere along the line we can think of something, but not now. Because it's, as you say, it's a little bit too advanced. Now, for target guys, this year is where the fun part is, the Destroyer series. This actually got 3 separate US patents on it. 4 actually. You notice that the field point is smaller than the insert? Look at that, the field point is 6mm, the insert is 9.9 or larger. Why would you do that?
Line cutting.
Not just, no, nothing to line cutting. This is specially made for the hunter class on all the 3D. Because any other arrow, see this surface right here, the 30-degree surface right here? If this surface touches any other shaft, you destroy it. You crack the shaft. That means if somebody got a Challenger inside 11 ring, you push your 11 ring, you just destroy his arrow.
But it'll stay there?
It'll stay there because it's a punch point. It'll go in and shoulder itself in, at the same time crack his other shaft.
Running out of arrows, that's one way to get rid of the competition.
No, let me put it this way. If you know most of the 3D guy, they have 2 arrows they confidently shoot. The moment they lost that 2 arrow, they won't even make the 8 ring. Because they don't know how to tune the arrow, and they sure don't know how to spine the arrow. So after they lost that 2 arrow, they might as well go home. If you have been enough in the shooting field, you know who I'm talking about. They come here with a dozen arrows right here, but the only thing they can shoot is maximum 3 of them they can shoot. Put the 4th one, they won't even make the 8 ring. Those are the guys who wipe them out in a heartbeat. So I'm raising the bar altogether for everybody. If you are not here, you don't even belong to this sandpit is not yours. You can step outside. Yes, it's very, very belligerent, but in the 3D hunter class, if you find a more belligerent, more nasty place, it doesn't exist. Yeah. It doesn't exist. Am I right or what?
You're right.
Now, the beauty of this hunter class is still maintained with my arrow using the same Challenger size, which is 310,002, go into a titanium or stainless. So you can shift it, and then you can put 45, 55, 65, 75 green points on it, and that's the result. So you very much like the Avenger point, but except the point don't bend. See, the Avenger point, when you shoot it, your bend like was out of style. Because it is a reverse taper on 30 degree. So it's a pyramid sitting on a pyramid. How do you shift? It can't. And then with this tubing on it, you strengthen it. So if you're narrowing 3 more arrows go in, can't break yours.
So that's not the actual shaft, that's the insert shaft.
That's the insert shaft. Okay. And see the double shoulder, see the second shoulder right here? Pretty cool, huh? So if you build your 3D course and you get your shooters out, they are the only one who come back with arrows. The other shaft, I don't know. Just good luck is all I can say. See that? This is our reverse taper right here. See on the edge? Double O-ring technology right here, and double shoulder right here. So there's 3 technology in one. Actually, there's a 4th one. Except somebody patented before I did. Right at this edge, this frontal edge. But since I use it before they patent it, they can't say much. All right, next thing. All right, now you notice that how this thing won. Now let's go into glue-in points. Now you notice that because the AeroConcept system, the arrow points are so good, our screw-in points are as accurate, if not more accurate than glue-in points. What's the benefit of a screw-in point? If something happened, or you need a lighter or heavier because of the requirement, you can take the point out, put a new one in, you're good to go. And my points are absolutely concentric. With glue-in points, you can't do this. Well, not exactly. Let's go into this. As you can see, I got two levels of gluing point. This is the AeroConcept point 1.0. That's the 1.0, that's a 2.0. The 1.0 just glue it together. Now the reason to do that because you eliminate one component. That's insert. So you now can have a longer tubing with the same weight because the insert is about 18 to 22 grain, which equal to 2 inch of carbon tubing. So if you're able to put a 6 inch instead of 4 inch, because that you want the weight. Because when you play 3D, what you're playing is weight. That is so critical. If you don't understand it, you don't understand 3D. 3 grain, 5 grain difference, 10 grain difference make all the difference in the world. And because the wind a little bit heavier, you want to add a 5 or 10 grain in the front, on the back side or whatever, it is critical. If you don't do this, you don't understand this. You need to talk to somebody who do. The gluing point now gives you a full section with a point and still maintain 8% FOC. Actually, sorry, I say wrong, 6% FOC. This arrow will fly perfectly for indoor 3D. The moment you go outdoor, you need a 6 to 8% now. 7, 8 is what you need because you got a wind. The arrow vane is what help you, but arrow vane is still a vane because you're still dealing with 296 feet per second. You're not doing IBO. IBO is unlimited speed. But with ASA at 296, that is not enough lift power for the arrow to overcome it because you haven't reached 315 feet per second. It's illegal for ASA. So you now have to add a little bit more weight to the front. That's the reason the weight comes in to put in your gluing point with AeroConcept. And of course you can put this tube right here too. And of course this is the wiring diagram, the true engineering diagram, how this worked. Now unlike others, notice the 2 O-rings right here on the glue, on the weight, which you can see actually on your booklet for easier. If you look at page 11, on the upper right hand corner, you can see the double O-ring. So this double O-ring is a retake of what I have my arrow insert. The moment you put it in, the double O-ring will snug itself. No matter how you shoot it, the weight won't fall out. Period. And now, unlike others who force you to build a really expensive tool, the arrow weight tool that I sell you costs $10. How come so cheap? That tool is 31 inch long or 32. What I do is I sell you these 2 pieces on both ends, and you glue that 2 pieces into a 166 shaft. Bingo. And you use a normal hex screwdriver. You now got an entire tool. Everybody got a hex driver somewhere. Everybody got to use 166. If you not talk to your dealer, get a cheaper 166 that is a blimp. Glue the 2 ends, you got your tool. Pretty cool, huh? Any question on this? Because this AeroConcept point also have reverse taper right here and double shoulder right here, and you also have the weight capability. So by the way, that's 3 patterns right here. So for target guys who don't want to do a gluing point, but don't want to do a screwing point, but a gluing point with a lighter front weight, this is the deal. With this system, by the way, this is a system that Charlie Vaperman win 24 points on IBO World. That means he can not shoot the last 2 targets and still win. By the way, everybody that come with me only got discounts. Nobody got free stuff. That's my rule. I don't do shooting staff, so you don't have to worry that, oh, everybody you talk to is somebody's shooting staff. Wait a minute, if everybody's shooting staff, why do I need dealers? Okay, now, same thing. This is Aerobow now. Now we're talking crossbow. That's Aerobow Concept 2.0. You see that? The inserts you can use, the tubing, the end caps, and the knock. That's the basic concept 1.0, of course, the Dragon Slayer. The Dragon Slayer you guys can't build because you need a full vacuum system. Because you are gluing this piece into this piece into this piece. Supporting, see that? The insert all come in, the end cap, everything is supported. That's your Dragon Slayer.
What's the difference between the Aero Bolt 2 and then the G?
The G, because of the super large insert, that's 100 ring right here. Okay. It's a higher modulation. It's a CTI 30L. It's called 30L now. Because I'm using that for all the lightweight. Aero Bolt 3 is going to use 30L. So it's a 4 million. It's a 4K carbon piece. It's linear. Don't try to bend this. This is not bent for bending because it will spur out. It is specially made for for linear bending inside the shaft. So in other words, this is a 4K carbon 100% linear, one way.
What do those run per dozen?
Same thing, $19.95 a dozen in the shaft. The inserts are $39.95 for 100 grain. But I also have this one in brass, $14.95. So all of a sudden, your entire building capability changed. Because now you're no longer a $60 investment. It's a $35 investment. It may not sound like a lot, but a lot of customers want 3 arrows. It's a lot easier to sell them 3 arrow for $60 than 3 arrow for 100. But 3 arrow with the light enough for $100 instead of 3 arrow for 150. Because the Firenock is already $70 to start with. Now, you guys all know this piece. What's the real intention for this piece since we're in Aero Concept now? See, you remember how we talked about this arrow shaft flex? And now you also understand this flex is actually very critical because you are dealing with an oscillation flex on different axes. The axis is where your problem is. Because imagine, if you look at the front axis of a bow, if your arrow is flexing this direction on your arrow rest, and use a prong rest, what is going to happen to your prong?
Yeah, but nobody uses a prong rest anymore.
Oh really? What happened to 3D guys? Have you ever seen any 3D top guy don't use a prong rest? Everybody does. And this is where the problem is. That's the reason Whisker Biscuit works so well. Because Whisker Biscuit circularly control the arrow launch. That's the reason everybody should well with the Whisker Biscuit, but can't shoot wonderful with one. And when you spine the arrow shaft, you're forcing the arrow to oscillate this way. But you know what? This is not a true representation. The real representation, the arrow actually is flexing this way. This is what every single copper arrow out there does. How come the arrow is flexing this way? Everybody expects the arrow to flex like this, right? No, the arrow all flex like this or flex like this. I will talk about it in the next section about arrow construction. So until you understand the fundamentals, you can't build good arrows. Arrow do not flex up and down. Arrow flex in a curve. So what we were trying to do is that we want to make sure the arrow actually end up flexing like this or flexing like this. So at least we have control over this point. That's your launch point, your initial apex of your shaft. The moment you use a PAPS system is to find this piece right here. So people are saying, well, you know, I really want to find a high spot, which is opposite of a low spot. No, the high spot is not the opposite of a low spot. The high spot is 10 or 15 degrees on either side of the low spot, as long as you use a carbon arrow. The only time the high spot is exactly opposite the low spot is aluminum arrow. The more it's carbon, that no longer applies. Because all the carbon shaft, until I come with my shaft, flex like this or this. That's the reason you always look for the lowest point and you put the thing on opposite of it. So if you do my PAPS system, you find the point, you mark the top, that's you put your coffee. Because you know where the arrow is going to flex up or down. Because that's the only part you can trust. The opposite side you can't. Because you don't know which way it's going to.
You said mark it, and that's where you put your cock vein, or you put your cock vein?
No, you put your cock vein right there. Doesn't matter if you shoot up and down. Because no matter what, the arrow is going to flex towards the low side.
So don't we do opposite?
On that jig, George, that we have the one that you...
especially make the 4-1, I know.
Yeah.
A lot of people thought you'd like the way you do too, but you don't. What you want to do, because think about it, if you mark it, okay, when you're finished with it, the lowest point is coming down. The moment you put a cock vein into the crossbow, it flex up.
But the lowest number on that jig, when you're rolling an arrow, the lowest number on that jig, what is that? Is that the high spine or the low spine?
It doesn't matter. It's the weakest link. It's the first dynamic band. Because you can have 2 second high dynamic band, you won't have 1 on the low side.
So the highest number is the low spine?
No, the lowest number, but if you put on it, you put a meter on it and show you the absolute lowest number. Remember,
that's the low spine.
That's the lowest point, just like a fishing rod.
Yep.
When you throw a fishing rod, whatever the tip dictates the entire rod, no matter how heavy that is. The moment the tip rolls, the rest follows, no matter what. So in other words, the moment you find the first dynamic band, the rest of the arrow will follow that band regardless.
So really we'd want our cock vane right on that mark.
Correct.
Okay.
Unless you shoot Tech 15, but even when you shoot Tech 15, it doesn't matter. Tech 15 don't have a rail. Because see, when you put the cock vane down, when you put it in the scorpion, when it flex up, it's off the rail. That's where the down point becomes critical. Because if it flex up, the entire midsection arrow is touching the shaft like this. See that? But if you do it, the midsection is touching like this, so it's touching the tip and go up. If you look at a scorpion bow, the midsection is rolled out. Only the very front part is touching it. It's trying to recreate an arrow rest.
Right.
So we need to have that cock vane on 0, not the mark on 180. And then
Right.
See, that is a misconception. A lot of people do it. But the good thing is that it doesn't matter as long as you do it consistently. But on crossbow, especially with a rail crossbow, you absolutely have to be, the low spine should always on the opposite, with the coffin coming down. Because you want the arrow to bend like this, not bend like this. Because when you bend like this, the midsection of the arrow is on the rail. You have no control. In other words, you just decided to touch this part of the arrow when you launch it. If that thing is not, I mean, yes, you still get accuracy because you are doing the linear. You're not touching this. Isn't it?
I'll turn that into some. Hello.
Right.
Yeah, that's the editor for this entire presentation. My daughter. So you can see how important that part is. Because a lot of times, it's not a matter of right and wrong. I mean, it'll work. But this is where the what do you call it, the detrimental for the entire archery industry. It's good enough. It will work. Everything is good enough. Everything will work. Do you want it? I mean, if you go to a high-end restaurant, you order a perfect steak. Well, it's good enough. What is good enough? You're paying mucho dollars for it. Now it's good enough. How about I give you a car with 50 small minor problems they later fix for you? Would you accept it? No. I know I wouldn't. If I paid that kind of money for a top-end car, you better be perfect. But just like you know, Murphy's Law is 10 times more powerful in the woods. If you don't prepare for it, you pretty much know that it's going to happen on the day the most important deer showed up in your life. You're going to miss it. Because all these things will come into play. I mean, isn't that truth? The worst case scenario always happens when you're hunting.
How do we find that now point?
The now point is a whole different ballgame. The now point, this is the only way you find it. Turner, can you give me an arrow with the ring on it? I'll show you. See, you notice that at this very moment, that is where the point that nothing moves and nothing sounds, supposedly. Okay? You got a few point on it?
Yeah.
Good. And this is the way you find the now point. You find a nice piece of hard wood, and you hold your arrow like this, okay? And you slowly drop the arrow like this. That's the now point. You notice the sound change? Dead. You know why? Because I'm on this point. It's not bouncing up and down, bouncing up and down. At this point, it don't bounce no more. That's the reason it's dead. That's the now point for this configuration.
So that's where you set your rest. You want your rest to be right there on that.
Correct. With the arrow rest, but with the Aero Concept, you have wider. If you don't understand this concept, how would you know this exists? And people say, oh, I want an arrow rest all the way to the front. This is where you put your arrow rest. Do you want that? Do you really want that?
How much does it vary between arrows?
Very much. No, I mean, from different brand. Same brand pretty much right on with the same length.
Right.
With the same tip. Of course, you can change the tip and move it around. The tip weight change.
That dictates where that is.
And also the length of the tip. because you're dealing with FOC. Just like you got to brought out this long and brought it this long, it's not the same. But you can get a general idea. That's the reason AeroConcept come in fine, because you're looking at lower angle. Your mount point is wider now, effectively. You're not looking at a sharp curve right here. We're lower this angle, from this angle into this angle.
Even without finding that point, you would be...
You're right, you're pretty much there.
Yeah.
That's the reason AeroConcept is so much better on Crossbow. Also the accuracy come in, because now you're controlling that now. Now, if this part is solid, in other words, all of a sudden, the actual now point is behind the insert, which now, if you say, imagine if you put a 4-inch insert in it, the now point is actually now all the way down here. This whole thing become moving. You got this much movement on the front now.
Does that go out the window on railed crossbows though? It doesn't matter where the now point it does.
Oh, it matters even more.
But how do you, if there's a rail, how do you adjust?
You don't.
2.0.
Yeah, that's the reason you try to minimize the flex using 2.0.
Okay.
You lower the flex to the minimum. You shallow this part further. That's the reason all of a sudden you find out, and not to mention, this is the most important because you already marked the high and low point. You know, you marked the low point already. You know how the plane of the arrow is going to flex on the first dynamic band. We already know the second and third is unreliable. So the first one, this one is the only thing you can count on. And of course, you know, I'm putting it because this is a vertical bow. On a crossbow, this point actually go down. On a vertical bow, you shoot coughing up. On the most of crossbow, you shoot coughing down.
Well, that's the way we have it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
No. We mark our low spine,
no.
And then 180 degrees from that is where we're putting our cock vane.
Yeah, but that's great for vertical bow.
Right, but
it's not great for crossbow.
So on a vertical bow, we keep doing the same thing.
Yeah.
We put the mark on 180, turn it to 0. On a crossbow, we need to have the mark on 0.
But you see, with vertical bow, it doesn't matter because vertical bow, when the arrow flex down, what difference does it make? It make nothing. So as long as you're marking with the same, it doesn't matter. So if you do a Tech 15 or doing a Devastator or a Raven, it don't matter because you got an arrow rest. You can flex this way. With the normal rail, you can only flex this way because when this way, the arrow shaft will go up there. I mean,
that's the only way to find that now point?
Yes, no, that's the only way to find an now point because you have no way to find it. See that? See that? Hear that? Hear the sound? It's totally dead. Now further, see, it's different. It's bouncing again. Hear that? Hear that? That's your now point. That's the only way to find. Because the moment you reach this point, the bouncing of the arrow disappeared. That's the reason it sounds like that.
So what if you have what if you're doing a dozen shafts? Can you find the now point on one, measure
and the rest
it,
will
and
follow.
then that you don't have to do bounce every single? Okay.
I mean, just to be sure you can do that. Maybe the arrow got cracked, maybe the insert got too much glue. That do happen. But when you do 2, you're pretty much right on. But also with AeroConcept, it's less important. That's the reason AeroConcept will give you such an arrow, such accuracy. Because you're launching the arrow in the same plane. Am I helping? I mean, this really put a different twist on how arrow building and how the arrow actually behave. And why PAP system is so important. See, you know, when you're doing something like the other guy, which is using like a ram, the ram is looking for high and low point of the imperfection of the shaft. Well, let me ask you one thing. That's in the old days. What happens if you got a perfect grinder? You grind the shaft with the support all the way through 1/2,000. What's the high and low point? It doesn't exist. You're looking for the imperfection of the grind to swoop in high spot and low spot. But with the new CNC machine, just like all the new machine you have, you can grind anything, machine anything in 1/2,000. What are you looking for? You got a shaft with a mandrel and you turn it and you grind it. How straight is the shaft? That all the shaft I have is not I cannot make a shaft more than 1,500. It doesn't exist. So what do you do now? I mean, seriously, I just developed a brand new method. All my shafts, the worst case scenario is 1,500. The best case 0.2 to 0.4,000. No, we're not in one. There's nothing more than 1.5. Period. Of course, the PAP's vibration module all the different pieces. Have you used this piece yet? You don't need it. That's only for aero manufacturer. Gold Tip got one, Black Eagle got one, all the other aero manufacturer got it. Because see, when you make a dozen shaft, ask yourself this question, what's the spine on it? Do you know? This is to measure the true spine of the shaft for manufacturing purpose. This is to help you, you use the vibration module, and of course the laser module, you already know it. It is to make the shaft easier to locate. And that will finish the Aero Concept. Any questions?
That vibration module.
You
I've been so used to getting a visual readout on that RAM, I find it hard to trust that thing.
Well, that's your problem, because everybody is trusting the RAM because they can see.
Right.
But seeing is not what it is, because on the next segment, I'm going to teach you how not to see and why seeing doesn't mean anything. Because of all the new shafts, when they are perfect, what are you seeing? There's no imperfection.
So in other words, you can feel it, or it'll
you can
settle
feel
itself.
No, you have the physical put a vibration module, rotate it, and feel it. You use both hands. The hand on the vibration module, the hand on the shaft. When you rotate it, you'll find it. I can do about a dozen arrows in 2 minutes, about a minute and a half. Nobody can touch. No, I mean anybody, and like Jeff Johnson, all the people like Tesla. I mean, all my certified trained pro staff, they all know how to do it. Before you go, I will hand train you.
Okay.
All right, so you got it. All right, that will be the end of section 4.